Hi everyone, my name is Charlene. We are now on lesson 4 and our topic is about the review of theories related to learners' development. For this lesson, we have 3 learning objectives. First is to explain the main principles and concepts of the different major developmental theories. Second is to apply the different developmental theories to enhance one's own learning process and improve teaching strategies. And third is to reflect on the theories by identifying and understanding how an individual learns, thinks, and behaves based on his or her given developmental stage. In order for an instructor to be an effective facilitator of learning, he or she must have an excellent working knowledge of the learner's development. That is the importance of learning the 7 major developmental theories. Let's start with Sigmund Freud's 3 components of the personality. Freud states that personality is composed of 3 elements known as the id, the ego, and the superego. These elements work together to create complex human behaviors. The first component we have is the id. It is in line with the pleasure principle. It's an unconscious pleasure seeking, a moral part of the personality that strives for immediate gratification of all desires, wants, and needs such as hunger, thirst, self-preservation, and sex. The second component is the ego, which is in line with the reality principle. It is majorly conscious and is more rational, logical, and cunning than the id. The ego satisfies the demands of the id only in ways that will not lead to negative consequences. The third component is the superego. This is in line with the moral principle because it contains the conscience which gives a person a sense of right and wrong. The superego develops as a preschool-aged child learns the rules, customs, and expectations of the society. Next, we have Sigmund Freud's psychosexual theory. He believed that each of the 5 psychosexual stages has a different erogenous zone, or area of the body that produces pleasurable feelings that becomes essential and can become the source of conflicts. These conflicts that do not resolve can cause fixation or getting stuck to some degree in a stage of development. Here are the 5 psychosexual stages. First, we have the oral stage. This is where children derive pleasure from oral activities, including sucking and tasting. They like to put things in their mouth. The conflict in this stage is weaning. When a child becomes fixated in this stage, it results to overeating, drinking too much, chain smoking, nail biting, and constant gum chewing. The next stage is the anal stage. This is where children begin their toilet training. When a child experiences harsh potty training, he or she becomes obsessed with orderliness and tidiness. This fixation is called anal retentive. On the other hand, when a child experiences lax potty training, he or she becomes very messy and disorganized, a fixation called anal expulsive. The next stage is the phallic stage. The conflict in this stage is the awakening of sexual feelings. This is where boys are more attached to their mother. This is called Oedipus complex, while girls are more attached to their father. This is what we call the Electra complex. Fixation in this stage leads to immature sexual attitudes, being overly vain, exhibitionistic, a low sense of self-worth, and shyness. The latency stage is when children spend more time and interact mostly with same-sex peers. So the conflict in this stage is school, play, and same-sex friendships. Sexual urges and impulses for erogenous stimulation lie dormant in this stage. Fixation leads to immaturity and the inability to develop close interpersonal relationships with others as an adult. The last stage is the genital stage. The conflict in this stage is building sexual relationship with a partner. Individuals are attracted to opposite sex peers. Fixation in this stage results to guilt feelings about sexuality, feelings of inadequacy, having poor sexual relationships, and feeling anxious regarding the opposite sex. Next, we have Erikson's psychosocial theory. He believed in the impact of significant others in the development of one's view of himself, life, and the world. He describes how social influences contribute to our personalities throughout our entire lifespans. He maintained that personality develops in a predetermined order through 8 stages of psychosocial development. Successful resolution of a crisis in each stage results in a healthy personality and acquisition of basic virtues. Failure to effectively resolve a crisis in a particular stage results in a reduced ability to resolve further stages, leading to unhealthy personality and a low sense of self-worth. Here are the 8 stages of psychosocial development. First, we have trust versus mistrust. This is when babies' needs are met and they learn to trust people and expect life to be pleasant. However, if the baby's needs are not met and they are neglected, they develop a sense of mistrust. Autonomy versus shame and doubt is where toddlers learn to direct their own behavior or they doubt their abilities. Initiative versus guilt is when preschoolers learn to initiate tasks or they feel guilty about efforts to be independent. Industry versus inferiority is when children learn new social and academic skills or they feel inferior if they fail to do so. Identity versus role confusion is a stage where adolescents develop a sense of identity by finding a role for themselves and defining who they are, or they become confused about who they are and what they want to be. Intimacy versus isolation is when young adults learn to form close and intimate relationships or they feel isolated. Generativity versus stagnation is when the middle aged discover a contributing to the world through family, work, and community, or they may feel a lack of purpose. And the last stage, which is the ego identity versus despair, is when elderly people reflect on their life and may feel a sense of satisfaction or failure. Next, we have Jean Piaget's cognitive theory. He stressed the importance of the child's interaction with objects as a primary factor in cognitive development. He believed that children form mental concepts or schemes as they experience new situations and events. For example, you pointed to a picture of a dog and tell your students that's a dog. The child will then form a scheme for a dog that looks something like that in the picture. Assimilation is when children first try to understand new things in terms of schemes they already possess. For example, the child might see a cat and say that it is a dog because both animals have fur. Accommodation is the process of altering or adjusting the old schemes to fit the new information and experiences. In relation to the previous example, where the child mistakenly identifies the cat as a dog, he or she realizes that the two animals are actually different and alters the scheme for a dog to include barks to differentiate it from a cat. Here are the 4 stages of cognitive development. First, we have the sensory motor stage. It is where children explore their world using senses and ability to move. They develop object permanence, and they understand that concepts and mental images represent objects, people, and events. The pre-operational stage is where young children can mentally represent and refer to objects and events with words or pictures, and they can pretend. However, they are unable to conserve, logically reason, or simultaneously consider many characteristics of an object. For the concrete operational stage, children are now able to conserve, reverse their thinking, and classify objects in terms of their many characteristics. And finally, for the formal operational stage, people can use abstract reasoning about hypothetical events or situations, Think about logical possibilities, use abstract analogies, and systematically examine and test hypotheses. Next, we have Lev Vygotsky's socio-cultural theory. He emphasized the importance of social interaction with other people, typically more highly skilled children and adults in cognitive development. Scaffolding is where the highly skilled person gives the learner more help at the beginning of the learning process and then begins to withdraw as the learner improves. The zone of proximal development is the difference between what a child can do alone and what a child can do with the help of the teacher. This illustration shows the location of the ZPD and it can be found in between the level of actual development and the level of potential development. It also shows that as a learner goes from one developmental stage to another, the difficulty level of the task increases. Next, we have Kohlberg's moral developmental theory. He proposed that there are three levels of moral development or the knowledge of right and wrong behavior. The first level is pre-conventional morality. The child's behavior is governed by the consequences of the behavior. Example, a child who steals a toy from another child and does not get caught does not see the stealing action as wrong. The second level is conventional morality. The person's behavior is governed by conforming to society's norms of behavior. For example, a child criticizes his or her parent for public smoking because it is against the stated laws. The third level is the post-conventional morality. The person's behavior is governed by moral principles that have been decided on by the individual and that may be in disagreement with accepted social norms. For example, a reporter who wrote a controversial story goes to jail rather than reveal the source's identity. The last theory is Bronfenbrenner's bio-ecological theory. He defines complex layers of environment, each having an effect on a child's development. Changes or conflicts in any one layer will ripple throughout the other layers. The microsystem is the layer closest to the child. This layer contains the structures with which the child has direct contact. Examples are family, schools, peers, and work. The mesosystem is the layer that provides the connection between the structures of the child's microsystem. Example is the connection between the child's teacher and his parents, between his church and neighborhood. Next, we have exosystem. The structures in this layer impact the child's development by interacting with some structure in his or her microsystem. So example we have are the parents' work, environment, extended family, neighborhoods, and mass media. The macrosystem is considered the outmost layer of the child's environment. This layer is composed of cultural values, customs, and laws. So that would be all for this lesson. Thank you all for listening. Remember, it is the supreme art of the teacher to awaken joy in creative expression and knowledge, according to Albert Einstein. I'll see you in my next video. Have a nice day.